Right. Hi, everybody. I was going to say good evening, but it's evening where I am and afternoon where everybody else is. But yeah, welcome to this presentation. And what it is, it's a talk regarding the School of Evolutionary Astrology. It's a panel discussion for those individuals who are interested in becoming certified evolutionary astrologers, and also for anyone who's interested in studying the material, to be honest, just wanting to divulge further into this material. And before we begin, I want to credit this to Rose Marcus, because this was a conversation that we were having in our last EA Zoom meeting just last month. It was a conversation with myself and another evolutionary astrologer, and sorry, potential evolutionary astrologer. I know she's interested in the work and she's studying the material. And it was just, we were having a discussion about the course and learning the material and submitting the coursework material to become certified in this fabulous form of astrology. And Rose just mentioned at the end that the conversation was brilliant, and it was a shame we hadn't recorded it. So this presentation is just a follow-up from that to present to you all the benefits of actually studying this material, because personally it's something I think everybody should do. So the purpose of this presentation, it's going to be a panel discussion with myself and my other fabulous ladies, just giving you more information about Jeffrey Wolf Green's School of Evolutionary Astrology, which was the original school taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, and in becoming certified in this paradigm, the requirements of the school and how it can, and how to help you become certified if that's your wish. And yeah, and just kind of help you evolve in your own soul journey, in your life journey. And, you know, like the quote I've got on the screen, evolution is not a linear process, it's holistic. And it's also the same reasoning with the coursework and learning the material. There's not one way is not the right way. There's many different ways to study this material, but just to give you some of the basics of how the school operates. So the School of Evolutionary Astrology is the original material that was taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green in Arizona in 1994, I believe. And Jeffrey himself had stated that he felt that was one of the best schools he taught. So that material has been collated into 27 DVDs, and which you purchase through the school. And I remember when I first came across this material, I purchased all the DVDs, and we were also given, if I can remember back, we were given a link to the material that had been transcribed. I personally printed out every single page, and I have 6 files of those documents stored in my room. They're like my Bible. I literally go in and out still to this day. Whenever I'm working with a client or just some information I want to relearn, I go back to that material. So the DVDs are there if you want. You can watch them and listen to Jeffrey talk, which is amazing. You will probably not want to switch them off, because honestly, you just sit there and you just get absorbed into this whole different world. But I personally found printing out the material and working through it like a booklet worked for me. But for everybody, it's going to be different. But there's so much information in those DVDs and in that course material that is just worth buying, just for your own knowledge. Even if you don't dream of being an astrologer, you know, just understanding the principle of your soul journey. It will hit a nail on the head, trust me. So just buy it just as a gift to yourself. So the School of Evolutionary Astrology is, the link is on the website there. It's the schoolofevolutionaryastrology.com. There's a message board there also to learn about the school, learn more about the different subjects that we talk about. There's so much information there. It's a resource in itself. And also just come and join like-minded individuals, you know, have a conversation about stuff that interests you and about what's happening in the world. Maybe, you know, there's a conversation right now going on about goddesses. There's a conversation about even just studying the course material, just anything that's of interest that will help all of us grow on a soul level. It's a great resource. So yeah, so definitely have a look at that website just for more information. And yeah, and we're also there to talk to as well. It's a great place to learn. Can we have the next slide, please, Sue? Rose, if you want to take on this slide for me.
Yeah, and in 2019, Laura Nalbandian and Patricia Walsh and I established Soulwise School of Evolutionary Astrology, and we are teaching a 50-week course in the material. There's many other things as well too. So that's an alternative if you are interested in that as well too. And I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Rav, in terms of coming into the study of this material. It's a never-ending field. Once you open the book, you've gone down a rabbit hole you'll never come out of again. It is a body of work that when I am called, you really feel it, and it will pull you in. And what you will learn about yourself, the DVD course can lead you to certification. Soulwise also has certification, but beyond that, for the personal study, for ongoing education, and for, as Amy had said in our talk this morning, building community as well too, finding like-minded souls to relate to. And when you learn the language of evolutionary astrology, you can really have deep and meaningful conversations with other people that is so impactful and so purposeful and so rewarding. Anybody who comes into this material is forever altered, forever changed, and forever blessed.
I completely agree with you, Rose. Completely agree with you there. Yeah, it's. I remember when I first came across it, it blew my mind first, because I was like, "There's something like this out there." It was that final aha. I've learned it. Here it is. This is what I've been waiting for. And it literally, I just remember just picking up that book and reading the first and second volume, Pluto, The Journey of the Soul. I say that book is like, I expect everyone to know what it is. Just reading that book, and it blew my mind in terms of it. And I say this to everyone, it just makes sense. If you're interested, that is one of the key books that you must read. Pluto, The Journey of the Soul by Jeffrey Wolf Green, volume 1, and there's a volume 2. And yeah, you'll know whether this is for you or not. It'll be very likely it's not for you, but yes, definitely pick up that book. So before we go on to the panel, just to discuss the school and the material, the areas that we're going to cover is when to begin, and that's in terms of the coursework, I would say, in terms of when to start processing, in terms of doing the coursework material, being ready, having understood all the material, all the background, all the how evolutionary astrology works, the paradigm behind it, the challenges and solutions that can be presented. We'll go over that as well, and the blocks and breakthroughs that will present themselves, and also the submitting part of the coursework pieces, because with any sort of study material, there's deadlines with certain courses and stuff, and that's great. You have a deadline, but with this material, there is no deadline. And I have to admit that first, when I came across that, I was like, when am I ever going to submit this? But we will go through that in terms of knowing when it's the right time for yourself. So yeah. So, right, in terms of, I guess I will start, because I guess I finished it most recently, just last year. So in terms of when to begin the coursework piece, I have to be very honest. I honestly think I started the first coursework piece 2 years into learning the material. Bearing in mind, I only submitted in the last 2 years, so 8 years later. So what had happened was I'd read the books, I'd listened to the DVDs, I had read the transcripts as well, twice over, so many notes on it and stuff. I actually stepped back, and then I was very lucky that I was very lucky. I came around Evolutionary Astrology when this brilliant book got produced, and it literally got said. I was like, this is what I've needed, because I used to go back on the message board, find certain articles, make notes on those articles. And I just remember knowing that I did a lot of self-directed learning. And that was not only reading all of Jeffrey's books, reading all you lovely ladies' books as well that I've read, a lot of 2 or 3 times, because every time I read something, I got a certain learning out of it. But then the second time I read it, I had a different interpretation. And for myself, it was very much about, I'm a book lover anyway. So that helped, because it is a lot of reading, and it is a lot of, we're lucky now with YouTube, there's a lot of videos and resources out there, which we will share later on. But for me, it was just getting enough reading and learning enough information around, and not, I did actually have a deadline for myself, which I didn't meet. But that's because I was going against the right time in terms of when I had to submit. So one of the first things is not to rush yourself, is to just enjoy the learning, because it will change you. I am a completely different person to what I was before I came across the books, the material, the school. So when to begin is, when to begin. It will come, the books will come into your world, whether it's the YouTube videos, whether it's a school, whether it's, you may just have found this video today by Googling something or YouTubing a keyword, but you'll know when to begin. I don't know how it was for everybody else, but for me, it was actually during my Saturn return when I first came across it. So timely.
And Jeffrey always used to say that with Pluto 1, he always used to say, take your time to read the materials. So go slowly with it. And you will find, if you buy no other book, Pluto Evolutionary Journey of the Soul, start there. And you can go back and reread and reread and reread and get something out of it every single time. Right, something new, something fresh, some insight. The evolutionary astrology is it's like a complete science. It's complete. The body of work that Jeffrey brought forth is so complete. It covers every facet of human life and human consciousness. And there's not a component in it that, where there's a missing blank that, that hasn't been covered. All of it's been covered, right? It is how it can support the individual. And I have to say that, I've been a professional astrologer for a very, very long time. I hosted, when Jeffrey did that school in '94, he was simultaneously also doing the school that I hosted as well, too. So I know all that material. And it was a profound experience for all that attended that. Again, he always used to say to me, cast out the net and let the fish swim in. And people would be called to the work. People would be called. It was a very, very special time. Sorry, I was going to make a point about that. When I started as a professional astrologer, it was very iffy as to whether it was going to be a career that could sustain you. And in today's world, it is a very viable career. It's a brilliant career to have. It's really a gift to be able to do this work. So for anyone out there who is thinking about, this as a profession, welcome aboard. People are craving the information. How you can support the people who come seeking is absolutely, my, my gift. I feel humbled by being able to do the work. I know Kristin says that all the time, right?
I wanted to share too, because this Saturn return keeps coming up. I know that Amy's in the middle of hers, and Rav, you found this work during your Saturn return, and during my Saturn return, I was in corporate America, which so many people know, and miserable. And it didn't, I had my first astrological reading because I was raised in a very traditional home when I was 30 years old. My first reading. I'm 56 now, I'll say it. But it wasn't until I was 33 that I met Jeffrey, and I never had being an astrologer on my radar. I was just going through this crazy time of what is my bliss, what is my calling, why am I here? There's got to be more than this, is what I kept saying. And so 33 years old, I was at an astrology conference because I was hoping an astrologer would tell me why I was here. What am I doing here? But I want to tell this very funny story. When I was in my Saturn return, I was going through major Pluto transits in addition. So that was not fun. And it landed me in the therapist office. And one of the reasons I had just been through this big breakup with a Gemini, and I'm a Sagittarius, and every boy I'd ever dated apparently, not apparently, but I'd ever dated was a Gemini. And so my therapist said, there's something to this. You should look into astrology. Why do you keep attracting the sign? And I'm like, okay, you should talk to my astrologer. I'm 30 years old now. Okay. I've not dabbled in astrology at all. And again, my therapist is a Gemini. This is getting just redundant and ridiculous. So I do have a third house Pluto. So not surprised, and a North Node in Gemini in the 11th house. So I guess I was supposed to be an astrologer. But anyway, so I met this woman, and she was working with me every quarter for a couple of years, trying to get me through my Pluto transits. And she said, I'm speaking at a conference in Colorado, you should come. And I was living in LA at the time. I'm like, okay. So I show up in my Ann Taylor pantsuit, my fancy clothing. I mean, look at me now, come on. And just so many people all over the place, 300 people at least roaming the halls, and all these different astrologers. I kind of dip into this lecture or that. And I was exhausted. I was completely mentally exhausted from my experience, because a lot of the things I was listening to were very mind-bending things. They weren't soul-filling, and they weren't emotional for me, at least. I just was like, okay. And I did enjoy seeing this astrologer that I had worked with speak, but she wasn't a teacher. And then on Easter Sunday, I walked in and was in Jeffrey's last lecture of the weekend. I don't know what took me so long. I think I was avoiding him because I knew that when I walked through that door, there was no unwalking through it, right? You can't unring the bell. It was just it. And evolution is hard work, people. We all know that. It's not for sissies. It's like, you gotta be ready. So, but it had to be on Easter Sunday, right? Pluto transit, day of death, and rebirth. Here comes Kristin with Pluto on her sun sign. And I did have his book already, and I couldn't understand really a thing. I just needed his presence. I needed to feel something. I didn't want to read something. And he said, good morning. That was it. Packed house. You could hear a pin drop. And I knew I was home. His voice, that was it. I had an emotional response to his voice, a physiological response to his voice. He is the most intense and sensitive soul I had ever come across, compassionate for your journey, but also unwavering in the teachings. So I'm so grateful for that. And I wanted to share this last little bit before others, love to hear you all too, is that I was very concerned about leaving corporate America, as I've spoken about before, because I was afraid, how would I survive, right? How is it going to pay the bills? As Rose, as you mentioned, you think you may not be able to have a career doing this. And it doesn't happen overnight, but I was afraid because we had a mortgage, and I didn't even have kids yet. And I knew those were on the way. So at some point, and I asked him point blank, am I going to be okay if I leave corporate America and quit my job? And he wasn't encouraging me to do that overnight either. But he said, well, let me put it this way. The wealth will be within. And of course, the second house that wants to say, but I want to make sure I'll have a roof over my head. That wasn't the response I wanted in the moment. But I paused and I knew that if I feel wealthy within, I can make anything happen. And so can you. You all know it for yourself. When you're feeling good, when you're feeling whole, when you're feeling at peace, when you're feeling connected, you know you can do anything. You're tapping into something more universal. And if you're meant to do this work, and if you're meant to shine a light for others, believe me, there will be a way to make it happen. And so the wealth was within immediately. I felt totally full, and I just had to not let fear get in the way. And of course, it wasn't a perfect path, but doors flew as soon as I left corporate America, which did take a bit of time for me to save and really immerse myself in this work. So I felt I was relatively ready, right, Rob? Relatively ready. I do have some planets in the 6th myself. Doors started flying open, and that was the universe saying, yes, 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 you're on path, you're on track. So that's my little bit. And it is my profession, and has been for 21 years, so, or more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you in terms of being a profession. Even friends around me are like, "What, you've made it a profession?" It's not like it's a profession. Yeah. Well, yes, it is. I've gone back into you say to pay the bills. I'm doing like a part-time job because I want to meet people and socialize. It can't be a lonely work unless you find a nice community where you can interact with. And it's like, yeah, and I've made some decisions where this is what I want to do. So I have to make some choices. And if it means not going out every single day, that's fine. I feel at peace with that because this is what I want to do. And I have to admit, I've never been this happy, touch wood, in terms of the work and getting up and just being at peace within myself. And it's taken a while to get here in terms of just believing in myself. And like I said, submitting those pieces and even after submitting, I have to admit, it was like, am I an astrologer? Am I good enough? Like who do I think I am? Those thoughts, the fear side does kick in, and that's very normal. I've only learned through evolutionary astrology how normal that is, the duality. You're always going to have that duality, and it's getting that balance right. And it's only through this work. I've read a lot of spiritual books in my life, a lot, self-help books and stuff, to the point that I'm actually an expert in that side of the business and in books. But it's knowing, it's like, okay, so I am normal. So this is how you're meant to experience life. It's not about all hunky-dory, everything's got to be perfect. And I've had astrology readings prior to evolutionary astrology. And I remember leaving them and feeling so disappointed, not because I didn't hear what I wanted to hear. It just felt too descriptive. It's like what Jeffrey used to say, cookbook astrology. One of my first ever astrology readings in London was with a renowned astrologer who has a column in the papers. And I left that feeling so upset. All they did was talk about each house, what it means, why my planets are sitting there, and that was it. And I was like, no, there's something missing. There's something missing. That blueprint has not just told you that I'm a warrior because I have planets in Virgo. I'm like, no, it was just like something is off here. And the fact that I came across Jeffrey's book in the astrology shop, because I was frequenting that shop for many years, but that book didn't jump out until the right time for myself. And an interesting story with that is I got my first tattoo it's the Phoenix rising. It was I got that tattoo at 31, and I came across Jeffrey's book 6 months later. And and I wanted the word soul written, but I couldn't find the right letterings and stuff. So I never went for that option. And I remember seeing this particular design and I loved it. It's just the Phoenix rising, and it looks like a leaf, but it's the rising from its ashes. And then I found out the whole meaning of the Phoenix, Scorpio, Pluto, the soul. And I was like, the signs are there. The signs are there. Just had to follow the breadcrumbs. And that's what I did. And it is following your intuition in knowing, internally, when something just feels right. It's subtle. It just feels like that's it. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I don't have many clear memories of a lot of things from my past, but that particular day, because I actually had a conversation with this gentleman in the shop who, because my family background is Sikhism, and he was a Caucasian guy as a fully blonde practicing Sikh. And I was just like, oh, I'm curious as to what made you convert. And he started to talk about how the spirituality and stuff, but then said to me afterwards, I've only realized after studying the religion, I didn't need to embrace the look. I just had to have it within. So it was just the conversation and the book jumping out. Everything just kind of made sense. And I was just like, sometimes you will be shown the path, but you just have to ask as well. Just be ready. It's like when you're ready, like you said, you were at that point in that Colorado, going to the conference and etc. Because my first reading was with Deva. I found the book, found the school, had the reading. And I remember putting the phone down and going, this is for me. It's only because it just made sense. And I remember Deva said one thing that at the time didn't make sense to me. And I was like, She said something about you're going to help empower women. And I was like, I'm not a feminist. I'm not interested in all that. But in hindsight, I know exactly what you were pointing to now. But at the time, I was like, initially, it was for myself, my own soul growth, to be happy within my own life. It was never about becoming an astrologer. It was actually, I studied the material for myself. It was only when I got into it, I actually was like, I'm not bad at this. And I was just like, I enjoyed working with family and friends, looking at like charts and seeing patterns happening and things. And people started going, what you said happened. You predicted it, right? Because I didn't predict anything. I said, I observed, I correlated, and I give you a potential outcome. I said, it's a science. It's not, a gimmick. It's a natural science that needs to be out in the world. And this is one of the reasons I'm doing this, because it's changing that perception of woohoo and linked to astrology. And the amount of people are like, oh, I'm this sun sign, I'm this sun sign. My first reaction is always, what's your moon sign? And they're like, what? Like, what's your moon sign? Yeah. So it is about just knowing that this material has been presented for a reason, and you have a free will. Life is free will. It's Jeffrey always said this as well. I read that life is 80% free will, 20% fate. And in the past, I would always be like, it's all fate. But now I'm like, you have a choice and you have to make a decision.
Well, I think over the many years that I've been practicing as well, too, I've heard so many stories of how people came to find EA. And there's always this magic to it. There's always a special story there. It's fun to hear them all. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds to me too, from what you've all been sharing. How does that phrase go? There's the leaves or the branches, and then there's the root. And it sounds like in various ways, when you want to get really real with yourself and your journey in your life and to understand the roots rather than the branches, then doors open. We start having experiences that open up opportunities. And it sounds like, especially from you, Rav, and I love that you're pointing this out, that it's not about necessarily wanting a career. If that happens, that you get motivated for that to be what you want your life to be, not as some career that defines you for career's sake, but because it symbolizes going into those deeper spaces and getting to the root of things. And that's certainly been what's pulled me to the work myself, because typical third house moon, you get distracted in what looks glittery or gold or superficial things, and Gemini rising, and then all of a sudden there's just this feeling that there's something I'm avoiding. And you don't always know what that is, but having grown up where I did, it's always in the background going, at some point you're gonna have to really whatever, when you're ready, no pressure, but there's always that lingering in the background going, okay, it's almost like when I read Yogananda or when I read Sri Yukteswar, that they don't stand in the way and they don't say you have to do this. And it's not like that at all. It's like you free will. You can do what you want, but at the end of the day, it's always going to lead you back to the same point. And I know how many of us have reached out in times where we feel that we're that hamster going around on the wheel. And we kind of raise our hands up and say, I'd really like to get off this treadmill. And please, if you could offer me anything about how to do so, I'd be greatly appreciative. And Pluto Volume 1, exactly when that point in your life comes to where it, Kristin, I think you shared too, something that, to be honest, not to get too emotional, brought me to tears every time. I think you said, I can't let this lie anymore. And when I heard you say that,
What did you say?
If people can get to that point, when you get to that point, you have to start honoring what's authentic and real in you. That's when magic happens, and not about the career. It's about what you want to manifest from the inside out and what you can give back from that space. So everything that you've shared.
It was truly an emotional experience. It was an emotional door that has stayed open. I wouldn't attempt to close it for a second. You know, it's just how much water can you take really is what evolution becomes. How much water can you take at once? How much learning, how much growing? And with any Pluto transit, and every soul goes through a Pluto transit, it's what we do with them that becomes the point and the purpose, I feel. And I think what's important to say too, Deva, is that, you know, for many of us, you know, evolution takes a long time. It can take lifetimes to get through certain dynamics. I have a really intense skip step in my chart. Talk about avoiding, right? Avoiding and running. In fact, Jeffrey said to me one day at school with my third house Pluto and my Mercury on the South Node, is because I like to run. I used to like to run. What are you running from? Just like the avoidance comment you made, right? At home. And I heard those words for many years. And what are you running from? What are you running from? To make sure I wasn't running anymore. You know, that I was staying right here in the center of whatever it is I needed to work on. And we run and we deflect and we avoid when we're afraid. We're afraid we're going to recreate something painful. When we're afraid, when we don't know where we're going to land, when the future is uncertain, we run. We find places that comfort us. And I think it's important for all of us to remind our clients and for us to remind you that evolution and growth isn't supposed to be comfortable all the time. And sometimes we have to sit in that for a while to then experience the empowerment, which far exceeds anything that you could do to try and avoid the pain or a temporary fix. I mean, this is any kind of leap through or over a hurdle is just, I mean, you can't put a price on that for the soul. You just can't. So yes, it was an emotional experience, and it's a timeless experience that nothing can touch. So
Right, it's because so often what I found is people think that it's either an easy ride or that you don't have to do that and you can just get maybe the gifts without doing the work. And I guess the point I was wanting to bring up too, along with what you shared, is that going into that space, or not in a negative way, but being able to go into those spaces and say, that's okay, you know, this is, even though the last thing this is comfortable or nice or, you know, anything I'd want to be feeling, that at the end, it's exactly going there that's going to bring the gifts and to blossom in each of the ways that you shared. So encouraging people that way as well, that even if it's not a perfect process or you doing the work that means that it just means that you've reached a certain place to where you can handle to the best that you can, or that you're ready to be really comfortable as you can with those uncomfortable spaces. Or it's, I guess the Libra energy is thinking about that equality, that it's not about you being in some unvulnerable state or that you've reached a place to where everything in your life is going great and you can quote unquote handle everything. It's about not running, not avoiding, and progressively developing skills to where you can coach yourself through those more difficult challenges.
Absolutely.
I think doing this work really assists with the ability to conquer the fear.
Yeah.
You know, once you understand more of the process.
Stacie.
Thank you. The way I came on to EA, I was frankly just in a state, I was doing just fine. I was kind of like you, Kristin, corporate, and I don't know, a lot of external focus, I guess. Not that you were externally focused, but
I was. I was at that time.
In that structure. And I was just dying inside. I was just like, nothing makes sense. And I turned to religion as one of the, hopeful remedies that would bring fire to my spirit and that would make me feel alive. And it didn't do it. I just observed too much hypocrisy, and I couldn't tolerate the hypocrisy. I couldn't tolerate the rules because there were no whys that accompanied the rules. And so when I found EA and specifically learned from Jeffrey, wow, all of the whys just came like, here are all of the whys. And this is not an easy system of astrology to learn because it is very intense. It is not descriptions. You are looking at every little tiny dynamic in the chart and how it interplays with each other. And then you're observing and correlating the person's experience. And so what I did for myself was I first I tried it on myself. And I got so many answers. It was like the biggest relief in the world. It's like, finally, truth, something that's true. Like, people aren't just trying to make a buck on me. It's true. And you can test it. And I swear my wisdom has grown like freaking, what's the highest mountain, whatever that mountain is. That's yeah. And not everyone is open to it, though. That's what I've found. Like, a lot of you are busy practicing astrologers, and for whatever reason, in my situation, I don't draw a lot of people who want to do that kind of work. But that doesn't mean that I have not, that it's been kind of like a loss, because I feel that I have found the tools. Like, I understand dynamics now. It is the kind of thing where, like, right now in life, I'm having a really difficult time. And there's no one here, there's no one around to really counsel me. And so, but I have the tools because of what I learned through EA to be able to understand the causes, and then to understand the archetypes. And like, I am the classic Virgo. You don't do what you need to do for yourself when you need to do it, i.e. procrastination. And then that has an effect. But it's through my own knowledge and through my own study that I can become aware of these things and see what I need to fix. And it's true. Like, I do find that I show up in people's lives sometime where just no one understands, and I'm able to just dive down underneath, and they don't even know what I'm doing. I give them a point of wisdom that gives them power to reclaim and to get their focus back. And I do that for I am my number one client, frankly. So yeah. Anyway.
Excellent. That's great. We should all be our own number one client. Wonderful.
Such a great way to put it. You have to be. The first person has to be yourself, because if you don't embody it, and if you don't, well, of course you believe in it if you study it, I assume, but if you don't embody it and understand the core dynamics yourself, even to counsel somebody else, it doesn't come across as authentic. It doesn't. The person knows. The person knows in terms of what you're telling them, whether it hits a chord. It's just with this astrology, I found, even with, I've seen all your works, Rose, Kristin, Deva, and Stacie, I've read the stuff you put on the message board and stuff. And I sit there and I think, yes, it just, it's like, it just cuts. It's just straight. There's, like you said, the depth, but there's no fluff around it, because there is no fluff, because it's like what Jeffrey's, the coursework, the transcripts, when you read them, yes, you're listening to him, it's a different format, but when you read them, he is concise. Like I'm looking at the Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the archetypes he spoke about. They're like this. Short, like concise. You expect them to be like, 3-5 pages, but no, they're just concise. This is it. This is it. This. And it's perfect. It's all you need. Because everything else just kind of colors, it just colors everything. It makes everything muddy. But with evolutionary astrology, it was like, Gemini duality, whatever, it's gone straight out of my head, but it's just straight to the point. And that's what I needed. Because I personally didn't study astrology before at all. I knew of it. I knew about the general birth chart, but I didn't know the archetypes and stuff. And I remember at the beginning, I confused myself because I read the book, had the course, then I was like, right, let's read everything. And it was literally, let's read everything. I had to slow down because it was like, right, slow down. You need to just do it one step at a time. And that's what the whole process, this process is, one step at a time. It's not a race. The world might be like a rat race, but it's not a race. It's like what Kristin said, evolution will take lifetimes. A lot of people think, the conversations some people have with me, oh, I finally get it. And I'm like, just be a piece of stuff, but I'm not going to have a conversation if you're going to hit enlightenment, I was like, I wonder even if Jesus Christ finally got enlightenment, in this lifetime. But it's that conversation of just be true to yourself here and right now. Everything else will follow. It's like some people just want to know the end result, but it's like what evolutionary astrology says, it's the emotional body. If you can't feel it within the emotional body, you've not learned anything. And this is with the material as well. Yeah.
I wanted to say,
yeah.
If I could just, I think one really central point to all of this and the whole system is the teacher himself. That soul is not normal. Like that soul is so wise and so committed to God. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. All he cared about and cares about are people doing things for the right reason and ultimately just having the core motivation to orient to God versus all of the other bullshit that there is. And so he really put a lot of weight and validation on the fact that, if you are humble, one of the things that he said about Virgo is it's the most breathtaking sign in the zodiac. And I have to say, I agree. It is
breathtaking. There
is no power like Virgo, because when you are released from the power of having to be some kind of big shot, or, it is simply the power of humility, which is where you are in a state where you're just trying to the best of your ability and you're willing to learn. You're so moldable by spirit when you're in that state of humility, and that is where God does its work, like no kidding. But yeah.
Just to add to that,
I just wanted to say, we all have strong Virgo energies in our charts.
We do. Just to add to what Stacie just said, a little test, if somebody wants to try this out there, please do. I remember coming across Osho's books. Books were fine. I remember trying to listen to him. I used to fall asleep. I literally couldn't listen. I used to wonder why. I used to be like, why can't his books seem okay? His messages seem okay. But him on video, I used to doze off straight away. And it used to annoy me. I was like, what is this? Fine. The minute I listened to Jeffrey's DVD, I just sat there like this. Just literally, I was like, I don't want to switch this off from straight away. And then I found out about just Osho's history and stuff, and his soul lessons, etc. And I was just like, that's when I realized that your body tells you, in terms of the truth, is just honing that skill and knowing how to decipher what that is. And it's like you said, it's just, excuse my words, but cutting the bullshit. Just just cut it out. And it's just, you know, it's in a way, it's sort of like Jeffrey's whole thing is, and you know, he's had many lifetimes, and he's probably sick of this cycle of like, oh, back on earth again, you know. It's because we all have these lessons to finish, but it's like he's just like, just if you want to get on with it, get on with it. If you don't, fine, don't. That's what I liked. It's not like there was no ifs or buts.
Oh,
So I think I would have tried. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to add something before I forgot, because I think a big thing that I hear from students is being overwhelmed by how much there is to learn.
Yes.
And it's a classic Virgo thing, being overwhelmed by so much. You know, leg 46, you get paralyzed when you start to to analyze what talks about the centipede, right? What leg 46 is doing. They're fine just as long as you start working towards something and moving. But it's important to know that, you know, well, you will never know it all. And that's the great thing. You'll always be challenged, which is a beautiful thing. It's we're always in a work in progress. But vibrationally, you will only attract people that have already, that you've come through, like you've come through something, and then you're going to attract somebody that's now in that place. You will only vibrationally attract people you can help, or people that are in a place you've already been. You know, I've never, ever had somebody call me or come to me that I couldn't help. It didn't mean I had every answer, right? It didn't mean I was perfect. And, you know, and we don't all have perfect days. You just keep trying your best and you use the paradigm. It will never fall short for you or for anybody. And so there's this a woman from Harvard at one of the schools, I think Harvard grad school actually, which was a blow mind really. And she was blown away at, you know, someone would say, I want you to interpret my chart on the break. And we used to say, okay, prepare to be exposed. Also, you chart. You sure you want me to? So the chart goes up, and this one particular student was sitting right next to me. Actually, she asked me to ask him for her because she was afraid. And so I was right next to her when she asked him, and she was a new student. And within 30 seconds, she was sobbing. 30 seconds, falling apart. I have to mention she has stellium in Aquarius, so I had never seen her cry in my life.
Oh, wow.
And 30 seconds she was sobbing. And so that was a really important and powerful moment for her, because she had been so frozen. That's Aquarius, right? And but she was ready. And so the girl in the back raises her hand, the Harvard girl, and she said, well, because he just completely unveiled and showed through the symbols and shared this past life story. And of course, he has a lens none of us have, but the astrology was there. And the Harvard girl says, so would it be fair to say that if we got about 10% of what you just said, like if we saw about 10% of what you just said and shared it in a reading, that we could still help people? Because it was so total, you know, what he was able to deliver, to share for this person. And of course, we all benefited by this experience. And so I would say to you, yes, that is also true. And I've tutored plenty of people will all say it's the same thing, because they start to compare what they know to what I know. I'm like, I've been doing this for 25 years, you know, every day. So, but it is not just analyzing in some Virgo way, it's intuition, it's deeper immersion. It is emotionally embodying this work, embracing it. It is being all the way inside these archetypes, living them for yourself, so you can actually talk and speak from experience. So just know that, you know, of course, you're not going to know everything right away. It's a process, you know, you'll never know it all. And so life is always interesting that way.
Well,
Yeah,
I just want to say one really important thing. That is one thing that Jeffrey has always taught about, in terms of students feeling overwhelmed with the homework, and oh, these people seem to know so much, and I'm not even on that level, and so like I feel like completely out of my league. The one thing that Wolf would say is that who you're going to draw are people where you are going to get them, if as long as your focus is on goddess, God, goddess, you are going to receive the message that that person needs to hear, period. So you don't have to be a freaking expert on the chart. I mean, you know, you want to know about it, but you can rest assured that if you are dialed in to the spirit, then it's going to come, and then the archetypes will simply back it up, and then it becomes very practical. So that's kind of my encouragement to people who feel overwhelmed. Just like really know you will be given the messages that you need to give. Just trust it. So
yeah. And it's like what Kristin said about centipede. It is one step at a time. It's not overwhelming yourself. And that's why the beauty of this coursework is, Deva, it is that one piece at a time. Submit the first piece. Let's get it reviewed. Let's see how that's done. Then you move on to the next. You know, it's not about sending all 10 pieces and going, well, done it, tick the boxes. It is about understanding. You know, even if I had somebody reach out to me because they had the coursework piece was sent back just for some questions. And I says, yeah, because there's no right or wrong. It's just a process to see if you've because there is a paradigm, you know, Pluto, South Node, the rulers, North Node, skip steps, etc. There is that process, but being able to integrate that to kind of get the message, that's all that's the coursework pieces are doing, or I'll say testing, but trying to see if you can synthesize that material in that order and then see the story. And my biggest thing is, and if anyone out there is doing the coursework pieces for the Jeffrey Wolf Green School of Evolutionary Astrology, is the background, the key bit of information that I think people might skip is the background information on the biodata you've been given. Research that culture, because that's such an important element in terms of understanding the context. You know, an Indian woman in India being brought up understanding the relationship between a man and a woman from a village is very different to a girl in America, you know, born in LA. That the dynamics are going to be different. It's going to be a different story, different experience. Hence, that whole one size does not fit all. It does not. I'm a twin. My twin sister and I are 5 minutes apart. Our life experience has been very different, to the point to this day, if I'm having a transit, she'll be like, oh, am I going to go through that? I'm like, it doesn't work like that. She's going to kill me for saying this, but I'm like, it doesn't work like that, you know. And she's very intuitive herself in her own way, but it's just people just think it's just going to be the same, you know.
Well, that's exactly right. That EA is all about individual context. And I think one of the beautiful quotes that really helped me remember that is, astrology cannot create life, it can only reflect life, which is why it is so important that you do exactly that research, that you understand that context first, and that you don't show up with your little chart in hand and go, whoop, you know, here, I know, or that you would make it fit like the one size fit all, but that you really listen to what's happening for that person, and for the homework that you correlate, you do your correlations in the context of what's given to you, and that you thoroughly check that out first, because then that means that you can interpret the symbols or interpret the archetypes in the correct context. And as you're saying that, it's not a you either get it right or wrong. I have found it's such a shift that for most people, they've learned these little catchphrases or the superficial parts, and they're really shifting into understanding the totality of the archetype versus that little sliver. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes going through it. And it's not a pass fail. It's that you make revisions until that core or until those core themes are prevalent from an EA paradigm.
Yeah.
I think the most powerful point and piece to this work is really that it, as Stacie, you were saying, it answers why, not what.
Right.
Why this life? Why those parents? Why this relationship? Why that betrayal? Why this experience? I mean, yeah, we can, oh, I see you're having this experience. That's the what, big deal. But why did that happen? The client doesn't need you to remind them that they're having this experience. They need to know why and what they can do to prevent it next time, or, you know, to take responsibility for what they've created. And that's a powerful thing to take in for somebody who's going through a lot, who's suffering or feeling like a victim of some situation. But let's find out why this is happening and why you had to create this for yourself. And so that was it right there. That why got me right through the door, you know, the why.
Yeah.
The why can be healing. The why is healing. The why can prevent the skip steps from continuing to happen. Oh, I'm responsible for this. I can't blame anybody else for that.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so there are many, we could go on hours with this conversation. We really could.
I think we should bring it to a wrap up, but it's been really great, and hopefully those who are watching have extracted something out of our talk today.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Just before we quickly close, there's just some resources just for some people if they want to just reach out in terms of understanding more about the material, what's out there. When Sue just brings up that slide. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so basically, if you want to get in touch with the School of Evolutionary Astrology, the link is on the screen there, but I'm sure Sue will also add it on the description, so you have it. Then we've also got a list of books they're my personal recommendations, to be honest, in terms of the books that I found just very useful in understanding the material in a deeper context, and just getting a little bit of an understanding of putting charts together and just understand the context behind certain materials. Of course, Jeffrey Wolf Green's books are the key essential books that you must read, whether it's for the course or not. But the other books, as you can see, there's the screen there with all the information, but we will add that description in the text for you. You know, like I said earlier, the EA glossary for me was my my go-to and my godsend book that was created by Linda Johnson, a key figure in all this work, the message board, etc. But yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. You can also just drop any one of us a message on the message board, or just reach out if you want any sort of assistance in understanding the course. And yeah, so just feel free to do that, and hopefully we'll have many more evolutionary astrologers coming out in the future.
Yeah, that's the intention. Dandelions in the wind. So thanks for hosting this panel.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for taking part with me. It's actually been fun. Yeah, thank you.